But I will start thanking Alex for the invitation to be here. Since I moved to Sweden almost 7 years ago, I started working in the research line called Food as Medicine. And thank you very much. And I was really caught by the plant-based diet. Actually, I was already doing plant-based diet. I just did not call it with this name. So to me, it became very natural that patients with chronic kidney disease, I could work and study a bit if this would be also appropriate for this patient group of patients that have been working for many years. So as we are in a quite, in a group where we have people from different areas, I thought I could start giving a very brief definition of chronic kidney disease, and some people here may not be used with the terminology. So chronic kidney disease is defined as a disease where there are abnormalities in the kidney function, and this is prolonged for more than 3 months when the glomerular filtration rate, which is a way to evaluate kidney function, is below 60 ml per minute. When those patients have this lower kidney function for at least 3 months, they are diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. And the disease is classified according to the degree of glomerular filtration rate, going from stage 1 to stage 5, where the higher the stage, the lower the kidney function. So this is when the diagnosis is made. And the different colors you see is whether the decrease in the kidney function is accompanied or not by albuminuria. If there is albuminuria present, then the rate of loss of kidney function goes faster, meaning that this patient needs a different type of treatment. When the patient is on what we call stage 5 of the disease, is when this patient requires starting kidney replacement therapy, which can be hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, or the start of a kidney transplantation. The problem we find with chronic kidney disease is that the lower the kidney function, the more metabolic derangements the patient develops. Because as we all know, the kidney has an important function in our body, as we say, to filtrate our blood, and also to promote acid-base control and to promote a good control of fluids in our body. But one of these, and then you can see that the appearance, or should I point here? Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Oops. I don't have a pointer, right? In here. Do I have a pointer here?
We have on this issue.
No, that's okay. We are in a small group. I can just come closer. So I just wanted to show to you that when the GFR is below 60, the appearance of these metabolic derangements, they increase as the GFR decreases. And these metabolic issues are higher parathyroid hormone, anemia, acidosis, high potassium, and high phosphate. And all of those influence the diet we will prescribe to our patients. And when the patient has a GFR below 30, all of the 4 will increase substantially. But the good news is that a plant-based diet can be used to treat many of these derangements, especially metabolic acidosis, hyperphosphatemia, and even hyperkalemia, despite many believe that when the patient has hyperkalemia, we need to take away all the bananas. But I think otherwise. I think that the patient has hyperkalemia. What we really need to look for first are the intake of ultraprocessed food that contains a lot of additives containing potassium. This is the first low-hanging fruit in terms of treatment. And then once you were able to see whether this patient can adhere to a diet that has the minimum amount as possible as high intake of this ultra-processed food, then you start treating with the natural foods. But in any way, a plant-based diet is part of our treatment when treating patients with chronic kidney disease. And why is that? It's because this is a very interesting figure that shows it at all. In a plant-based diet, we have a much more higher organic base, or I will start for the inorganic base, with more alanine and glycine, which will decrease the acid production, and this will decrease the production of endothelin, aldosterone, and angiotensin, which affect directly the health of our nephrons, directly in the glomerulus. And this will help to decrease the loss of kidney function. So even for primary prevention for chronic kidney disease, the plant-based diet will be a good alternative. Once the patient already has chronic kidney disease, a plant-based diet, because it has more fruits and vegetables and less of the animal protein, is a diet that contains less of the amino group. And this is an alkaline diet, which will help to control metabolic acidosis. And metabolic acidosis activate a natural pathway that we have in our body called ubiquitin proteasome, which is a natural pathway we have to increase protein degradation. But the problem is that in metabolic acidosis, this pathway is activated all the time, and this will lead to muscle wasting. So by having a or a plant-based diet with lower amino group, you improve metabolic acidosis and decrease the activation of this ubiquitin proteasome pathway. And this will help to control also bone reabsorption and improves insulin sensitivity. On the other hand, we have here that a plant-based diet has higher intake of fiber, which will be good for our gut microbiota, decreasing the production of the bad bacteria that contribute to the production of uremic toxins. So this will also be good for our patient. So overall, I understand that a plant-based diet is important for primary prevention, and also when the patient already has chronic kidney disease, to help control this metabolic derangement that occur as kidney function decreases. For this reason, at Karolinska, we currently have a research line called Food as Medicine in Chronic Kidney Disease. Peter Steenwinkel, who created this research line, I am the coordinator. And the aim here is to investigate the role of health eating patterns and of foods rich in bioactive nutrients that prevent and treat metabolic disorders coming from the loss of kidney disease. And we also aim to help achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from the WHO. So we have these both arms, as a treatment and also on sustainability. We have some ongoing studies in this research line, which is studying the feasibility and the safety of plant-based diets to patients with chronic kidney disease, and also sustainable diet. We also are studying the role of potassium additives on potassium homeostasis in patients with chronic kidney disease. And we are studying some bioactive nutrients, such as epicatechin and sulforaphane, in patients with chronic kidney disease. And a colleague of mine, Alice Sabatino, she has a study where she's exactly studying the effect of epicatechin in improving muscle fat infiltration in the muscle of these patients. So my challenge here today is to show how the food system, and which is much more than only food production and consumption, can help with the planetary health and also be an option as a sustainable and healthy diet to chronic kidney disease, patients with chronic kidney disease, which to me is definitely a win-win approach. So I will start here, and I just ask this. I had the opportunity to be in New York in February, where I could watch an exposition, a temporary exposition in the MoMA, about the Earth Month. And this struck me. I just need someone to play this video for me.
Just one more.
I just do one more, okay. This is the global temperature change from 1850s to 2024. Yes. So then you see how the temperature has been changing over time in the last more than 1 century. And why am I showing this? Because this is directly related with the Anthropocene, where we have, you probably have seen this graphic before, that after the 1950s, the production of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane increased significantly. And these are the main responsible for the destruction of the increase of the greenhouse gas emission, which contributes to a lot of danger to our planet. Also, we see that after the 1950s, we have an increased loss of tropical forest, more domesticated land, terrestrial biosphere degradation, and ocean acidification. And believe it or not, the food system, the way we have, is responsible for part of this derangement. But the food system is not only the food we consume or how we produce food. The food system includes the food production, processing, how food is distributed, how food is sold in the market, the consumption, and the waste and recovery. And we have a lot of food waste. Food waste and food loss are different. Food waste is what we buy or what the supermarket does not sell and is thrown away. This is food waste. Food loss is the food that is lost before it goes to the retail or to our houses. So when there is a big rain and all the food that was produced is destroyed, this is food loss. If there is a big fire and the food is lost, this is food loss, it's not food waste. But I was challenged when I read and learned that the food waste is higher than the food loss. So we buy a lot of food that we don't use. Not only this, restaurants, supermarkets. So there's a lot of work to be done in this area to improve the food system. And the food system, the way it is responsible for 30% of the greenhouse gas emission. That's the biggest sector that produces greenhouse gas emission. It's the largest global water consuming sector and is the largest sector for transforming wild areas into croplands and pastures for food production. And it contributes also to air and water pollution, water waste, and deforestation, because in order mainly to produce more beef, a lot of land is deforested for producing beef. And this contributes to non-communicable diseases, loss of nutrients content in the food, because as the soil is being modified, the nutrients in the food is also modified. More malnutrition and problems with mental health. So the food system, the way it is now, it is a heavy burden for the earth system and has a negative impact for our health. Remember that food is among the 5 factors for having a strong hand grip of health in the world. So we need to work more on food. So, and this is the concept, what we call food for resilience, which is measures to prepare and recover food system from an unsustainable environment in a way to ensure accessible food for all. And this is also what we call food security. Food security is not accessible food to all, but nutritious food to all. And today we have a world where we have this very imbalance. In one side of the world, we have an excess of food, but in this side of the world, it's not that we have an excess of adequate food. A lot of ultra-processed food we need to find. And on the other side, we have lack of food due to hunger, to wars, to poverty. So we are in a completely imbalanced world. With the increase in world population, giving adequate food to everyone is a big challenge. And we have many ways to tackle this, but I will focus on plant-based diets. So the plant-based diets, I know all of you are already aware of it, But among all foods we consume, beef and lamb are the ones that are responsible for the higher greenhouse gas emission by kilogram of beef and lamb produced. So if we are able to reduce the intake of beef, this will already be a big help for the environment. Not only this, in order to produce red meat, especially beef, lamb, we need to use a lot of water. And this is also important for our health. So that's why the EAT Lancet Commission on Health, Sustainable and Just Food System is now doing this since 1921, and we had now in October the new EAT Lancet Commission document, where they added, in addition of having plant-based diet, also fighting for a more just food system, meaning a food system which is just, promotes justice, so everyone has accessible to it, not only those who have a higher income. So sustainable diets are diets that are healthy, with low environmental impact, affordable, and culturally acceptable. What are the plant-based diets? I think all of you know, but many do not know. They think that plant-based diets are vegan diets. And vegan is one of the dietary patterns among the plant-based diets. So plant-based diets, they include the vegetarian diets, the vegan, Dashopled, the new Nordic renal diet, which are diets used more for patients with chronic kidney disease, the Mediterranean dietary pattern, the Okinawan dietary pattern, the healthy eating dietary pattern, and all of them have in common a high intake of fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, with a lower intake of the animal protein. So you can see here that in the vegetarian diet, eggs and lean dairy are permitted, fish, poultry, and red meat not. In the vegan, none of this animal protein is allowed. In Dashopled, a new Nordic renal diet, Mediterranean, Okinawa, and the healthy eating diet, red meat normally is not present, but the others can be present, but in decreased amounts. And in all of them, ideally, we do not have ultraprocessed food and a low intake of sugar. In order to achieve this plant-based diet, I like this very much, this plate of food from the EAT Lancet Commission document from 2021, where they show like this, that in order to achieve this diet with 1,500 calories a day, 2,500 calories a day, our plate needs to be 42% based on whole grains, tubers, vegetables, and fruits, 18% from added fats, mostly plant-based fats. Oops, I got to the wrong row. Only 22% from vegetable protein, and very little from animal protein, only 12%. And 60% from added sugar. So this would be an example of a plate for a plant-based diet. So it doesn't mean that one cannot eat animal protein, but it would be contributing to a small section in our plate. And this, in order to achieve this, we would need to increase the production of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and nuts, and decrease the intake of animal protein. So I am a dietitian, and I only trust things when I calculate myself. So I calculated this plate of food with omnivorous meal with potato, beef, salad, tomato, broccoli, and a plant-based meal with whole rice, zucchini, beans, a small fillet of salmon, salad, and the total amount of carbon footprint in the meal reduced by 84% by changing the beef to salmon to a lower amount. So it is possible to achieve a low protein diet without sacrificing too much the plate of food. But for this, we need education. First, we need to convince ourselves, and then convince the ones we work with. So this plant-based diet is a win-win approach, where we would move from a lose-lose diet that contain unhealthy and unsustainable, to a win-win diet that is healthy and unsustainable. healthy and sustainable. And by using this approach, it is possible, according to this study, to decrease by 30% the greenhouse gas emission. So this was very much achievable. And we need this in our guidelines for the population. So, of course, as I am Brazilian, I brought the Brazilian guidelines, and as I now live in Sweden, the Nordic guidelines. And both of them do acknowledge the importance of applying a plant-based diet with diverse foods. And I just like to highlight that the first nutrition guideline for the population that acknowledged this was the Brazilian guidelines. So I'm very proud to say that we are a bit ahead. And even in the guidelines for patients with chronic kidney disease in 2024, they acknowledge this. Consider a plant-based Mediterranean style in addition to lipid-modifying therapy to reduce cardiovascular risk. And as a practice point, they put, adopt a health and diverse diet with higher consumption of plant-based foods compared to animal-based foods and a lower consumption of ultraprocessed food. And this is the most important clinical guideline for treating patients with chronic kidney disease. If there are nephrologists here, I'm sure that Yemin and Constantina know that KDIGO is the most important guideline. So this is also appearing in our specific guidelines for treating diseases. And these are two papers, one that we wrote here in Stockholm and the other from Italy, where we bring this knowledge to our patients with chronic kidney disease, showing that by adopting plant-based diet, we can adopt a win-win diet, where not only we would adopt a sustainable diet for the environment, but also would treat the metabolic disorders that these patients have. And this is a paper that was published this year in the Cantidinian, where together with Peter, Monica, and Peo, we bring this notion that even for patients on dialysis, we can adopt a plant-based diet. So let me show you this. These are some, the effects. I'm sorry, the plant of food is based here. But I had 2 plates of foods, and what I was showing is that by moving the beef and replacing it with fish, we can reduce the carbon footprint by 85%, and even we have adequate amount of protein, adequate amount of phosphorus, and even a lower content of potassium with a plant-based diet, exactly because of the food additives that we find in these diets. So CKD plant-based diet is also aligned with a sustainable and healthy diet. And how do we do this? So I think we have some steps. So first, I very much like this paper from Australia. 7 strategies to improve adoption of plant-based diet to patients with chronic kidney disease. First, consider language, flavor-focused phrasing, not only focusing on what patient may not like, but focusing on the benefits in terms of flavor. Second, start gradually and increase variety. So show to patients the enormous variety of fruits, vegetables they can consume, and in a varied mix. Do not decrease the portion size, otherwise they will feel that they are all the time being subtracted something. But on the other way around, try to increase the serving size. Focus on adequacy, where we would increase potassium come from natural foods and decrease those coming from food additives. Also, lifestyle changes is not something that we achieve in 1 month or by encountering the patient 2 times. It is a gradual approach. So we start from 1 point, perhaps see if the patient is able and willing to adhere to a more, by substituting the beef with chicken, perhaps poultry, or fish, And then from there, you go one food group at a time. Some patients, they do have what is called neophobia. They have like an aversion to a specific food group. It's important to understand, and if this occurs, it's better just to respect. And individualization is key. Consider socioeconomic conditions, cultural background, food preferences, the lifestyle, and of course, the clinical condition. And I think if we would have an app adapted to patients with chronic kidney disease, it would be very helpful. I'm not aware of any, but it would be very helpful. And remember that in this situation, lifestyle changes at the center, but we need to work with the patient, with the caregiver, and also with the healthcare providers. So we always speak the same language. This is I just brought to you because this was an Erasmus project that Peter Steenvinkel and I were involved, where are a series of games aimed to educate medicine students about notions of sustainability. And these were 4 main arms. One of these arms is nutrition. So these are online games that is free because it's an Erasmus Plus program. Anyone can access. And these are games that medicine students can be challenged on how to improve the environment with their actions as medical doctors. It's called ePlanet. You can just browse around and see if you like it. This is another approach that Konstantina knows well. It's called Good Renal. So the Good Renal are multimodal games. It's also Erasmus Plus project that are involved. The main researcher is Eva Seguro, there on the picture. She's a physiotherapist, a very inspiring physiotherapist. So she created these games that patients can play while they are doing hemodialysis. And these games, patients use the legs to play. And with the legs, the screen is up front. They need to find, they play with the legs, so at the same time they do exercise, and the content is educational. So we had content for nutrition, where they would learn what is ultraprocessed, what is not ultraprocessed, which fruits has more potassium relating to others, which foods had more phosphate relating to others. And they had also a session of well-being where they would meditate between the exercises. So that's what they call multimodal approach. The Good Renal was also an approach where the nurses, the doctors working with the patient had separate session to learn about not only how to use the game, but to educate about all this concept related with physical activity and nutrition. Because it's very common that I listen to doctors asking patients to stop eating bananas, the poor bananas, and sometimes it's the only fruit the patient eats. It's not the banana that is leading to hyperkalemia. So this type of notion is important. It seems like a given, but it's not given. So this is to be taught. So this is a very interesting. The material is for free for download. Again, it's an Erasmus Plus program, so it's free for download. And I would like to end here now with some sentences that I think can inspire us. Food is the single strongest lever to optimize human health and environmental sustainability on Earth. So, as Peter likes to say, the power is on our plate. Peter taught me this: what is good for the planet is also good for your health. I love this quote from Peter. Eat food, not much, most plants. Michael Pollan. A plant-based diet is one of the most powerful things you can do for the planet. Sustainable eating is not just a trend, it's a lifestyle that supports the earth. And how am I on time? I think I still have 5 minutes. So when I moved to Sweden and I had one of my first meetings with Peter Steenvinkel, I remember clearly, I was leaving the room, his office, and then he turned back to me and said, Carla, your future at Karolinska depends on you engaging with sustainable diets. I said, okay, message well taken. So and this was actually he inspired me a lot to go on this path, and I don't regret. We will have Axel next year with us, and he will calculate the biodiversity index of one of our clinical trials that we exactly gave to the patients a food basket to help them to adhere to a plant-based diet. It was really nice approach, and you know that these patients were eating 52% of their diet from ultraprocessed food. 52%, it's a lot. A lot. It's like USA standards. And Sweden is the number 2 in Europe in terms of intake of ultraprocessed food. The first is UK. The second is Sweden. So we have a lot of work to do. And when they started eating the food basket, the intake of ultraprocessed food decreased from 52 to 38%. Yes, it is still a bit high, but I mean, it is an enormous decrease. So it's not that once they have the food, they throw away the food. They enjoyed the food basket. They could adhere to it. So now Axel will calculate the biodiversity index changes during this approach, with this intervention. And we are very happy that you will be there, Alex. No, not Alex, Axel. And this is the team. So this is the nephrology division where I work. We have this research line, as I showed you, food as medicine. And this is the kidney research unit with the research nurses that carry the clinical trials. With that, thank you very much.